The nursing home room was small and sparse. A few family photos sat on the nightstand. A worn quilt covered the narrow bed. But when Ellen asked Dorothy Williams how she afforded her care, her answer changed everything. "I can't afford it, but I'm rich." Dorothy Williams, 72, sat in her wheelchair, wearing a faded house dress and practiced smile of someone who had perfected the art of appearing humble. For 3 years, she had lived at Sunset Manor Nursing Home, presenting herself as a woman of modest means who struggled to pay for basic care. Her children visited occasionally, always mentioning how expensive her care was and how they wished they could help more. The Ellen DeGeneres Show had invited Dorothy during their Unsung Heroes Week to highlight seniors living on fixed incomes who maintained dignity despite financial hardship. Her story had touched viewers, a former school cafeteria worker who saved every penny to afford basic nursing home care while her children struggled with their own bills. What Ellen's producers didn't know was that Dorothy Williams was worth $12 million. She owned properties in 3 states, had substantial stock portfolios, and maintained multiple bank accounts that her children knew nothing about. For the past 3 years, she had been conducting the most elaborate test of parental love in family history. The deception had begun after her husband's death 5 years earlier. Dorothy's 3 adult children had immediately begun asking about inheritance, making suggestions about selling the family home, and dropping hints about needing financial help. Their concern seemed focused more on her assets than her well-being. "Dorothy," Ellen began warmly, "tell us about your situation here at Sunset Manor." Dorothy adjusted her worn sweater. "It's a nice place, clean. The staff is kind. I'm grateful to be here." Ellen felt moved by Dorothy's humble demeanor. "I understand you worked in school cafeterias for 30 years. "Yes," Dorothy nodded. "Served lunch to thousands of children, never made much money, but it was honest work." Ellen sensed there was more to Dorothy's story. "How do you manage the expenses of nursing home care?" Dorothy's expression grew complicated. "That's difficult to explain." "What do you mean?" "I can't really afford to be here," Dorothy said carefully. "But I am here, and I am rich." Ellen felt confusion wash over her. "I'm not sure I understand. I have money," Dorothy said quietly. "Lots of money, but my children don't know that." The studio fell silent as Ellen tried to process this revelation. "Dorothy, are you saying you're wealthy but pretending to be poor?" "For 3 years," Dorothy confirmed. "I've been living here, acting like I can barely afford the rent, watching how my children treat me when they think I have nothing." Ellen realized she was dealing with something far more complex than a struggling senior. "Why would you do that?" "Because after my husband died, all they cared about was the money," Dorothy said. "They stopped asking how I was feeling and started asking about the will." Ellen felt the weight of Dorothy's disappointment. "So you decided to test them?" "I moved here and told them I had very little money left, that the house had a reverse mortgage, that I was living on Social Security alone." "And how did they react?" Dorothy's expression grew sad. "Relief. They were relieved they wouldn't have to take care of me, and relieved there wouldn't be much inheritance to fight over." Ellen realized Dorothy had been living a carefully constructed lie to expose the truth about her family. "How have they treated you since you've been here?" "They visit sometimes," Dorothy said. "Usually for about 20 minutes. They complain about their own money problems. They never offer to help with my care because they think I can barely afford it myself." Ellen felt the profound loneliness of Dorothy's situation. "But you could afford the best care available?" "I could afford to live anywhere I want," Dorothy said. "But I wanted to see if they loved me or just my money." Ellen realized the painful answer Dorothy had discovered. "And what have you learned?" "That when they thought I was poor, I became much less important to them," Dorothy said quietly. Ellen felt moved by Dorothy's painful experiment. "Dorothy, what made you decide to reveal this secret today?" "Because I'm tired of pretending," Dorothy said. "And because I want them to know what I've learned about who they really are." Ellen made a decision that felt both necessary and potentially explosive. "Dorothy, your children are here today." Dorothy's face went pale. "What?" "Robert, Linda and Patricia, they're backstage. They came to support you during what they thought was an interview about struggling seniors. Dorothy began to shake. They don't know what I'm going to tell them? They have no idea, Ellen said gently. Should we bring them out? Dorothy looked around the studio, then back at Ellen. I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Ellen gestured toward the wings. Robert, Linda, Patricia, would you like to join your mother? Dorothy's 3 children emerged from backstage. Robert, 48, Linda, 45, and Patricia, 42. They approached their mother with the casual concern of adult children visiting an elderly parent they assumed had little money. Hi, Mom, Robert said, kissing her cheek. How are you feeling today? Nervous, Dorothy said honestly. Linda sat beside her mother's wheelchair. You don't need to be nervous. You're just telling Ellen about life at the nursing home. Patricia smiled at Ellen. Thank you for featuring our mother. She's been so strong through all her financial struggles. Ellen watched this interaction, knowing everything was about to change. Actually, your mother was just telling me something quite surprising. What's that? Robert asked. Dorothy took a deep breath. I was telling Ellen that I'm rich. All 3 children laughed, thinking it was a joke. Mom, you're funny, Linda said. Rich. Right. I'm serious, Dorothy said. I have $12 million. The laughter stopped abruptly. The children stared at their mother. What? Patricia asked. I own the house outright. I have property in Florida and Arizona. I have substantial investments, Dorothy said. I've been wealthy this entire time. Robert stood up slowly. Mom, what are you talking about? I've been testing you, Dorothy said. For 3 years, I've been pretending to be poor to see how you would treat me. Linda's face went white. You've been lying to us? I've been revealing the truth about you, Dorothy replied. Ellen watched this family confrontation unfold with growing concern. Dorothy, what did you hope to learn? Whether my children loved me or my money, Dorothy said. And I got my answer. Patricia was struggling to process the revelation. So you can afford better care. You chose to live in this basic nursing home. I chose to see who you really are when you thought there was nothing in it for you, Dorothy said. Robert sat back down heavily. Mom, this is crazy. Is it crazy to want to know if your children love you? Dorothy asked. Linda was getting angry. You lied to us for 3 years. You made us worry about your finances. Did you worry? Dorothy asked pointedly. Or were you relieved? Ellen realized the painful truth Dorothy was exposing. Kids, how did you feel when you thought your mother had limited money? The silence was telling. We were concerned, Robert said defensively. Were you? Dorothy asked. Because when I told you I could barely afford this place, you never offered to help. When I mentioned the food wasn't very good, you never suggested moving me somewhere better. Patricia was getting defensive. We couldn't afford to help. We have our own family. But you never even offered, Dorothy said. And when you thought there wouldn't be much inheritance, you seemed relieved you wouldn't have to fight over it. Linda was crying now. Mom, that's not fair. What's not fair is discovering that your children only value you for your money, Dorothy replied. Ellen felt the family dynamic deteriorating. Dorothy, what do you want to happen now? I want them to understand what I've learned, Dorothy said. When they thought I was poor, I became much less important to them. Robert was struggling with anger and shame. So what now? You've proven your point. You've shown us we're terrible children. You've shown yourselves, Dorothy said. I just provided the circumstances. Ellen realized this confrontation needed guidance. Family, what matters most moving forward? Honesty, Linda said quietly. No more lies from anyone. Dorothy nodded. And I want to see if you can love me when you know I don't need anything from you. Patricia was still processing. So you're not actually struggling financially. I'm struggling emotionally, Dorothy said. I'm struggling with the knowledge that my children care more about inheritance than my well-being. Ellen addressed the children directly. How are you feeling about what you've learned? Hurt, Robert said. And ashamed, but also angry that Mom felt she had to test us. Maybe she tested you because you gave her reason to doubt, Ellen suggested gently. Linda looked at her mother with new understanding. Mom, we did fail you, didn't we? You failed yourselves, Dorothy said. I gave you the opportunity to show unconditional love, and you showed conditional interest. Ellen felt this was a pivotal moment. Dorothy, what would it take to rebuild these relationships? Time, Dorothy said, and genuine care that isn't based on what they think they'll inherit. Patricia approached her mother's wheelchair. Mom, I'm sorry, you're right. When we thought you didn't have money, we didn't try as hard. We treated you like you were less important, Robert admitted. Linda was sobbing. We're horrible children. You're not horrible, Dorothy said gently. You're human. But you're my children, and I expected better. Ellen made an announcement. Dorothy, I understand you'd like to make some changes in your living situation. Yes, Dorothy said. I'd like to move to a better facility. But more importantly, I'd like to see if my children will visit me because they love me, not because they're hoping for something. Ellen turned to the children. How do you feel about starting over with your mother? Grateful for the chance, Robert said. Ashamed it took this to wake us up, Linda added. Determined to do better, Patricia concluded. Dorothy looked at each of her children. I love you all, but I needed to know if you loved me back, or just what I could give you. Ellen felt the power of Dorothy's message. What would you want other families to learn from your story? That love shouldn't be conditional on what someone can provide, Dorothy said. That elderly parents are still people with feelings, not just sources of inheritance. Ellen addressed the audience. What we've witnessed today is a mother's painful but necessary lesson about the difference between love and greed. The children were all crying now, really understanding what they had put their mother through. We want to try again, Robert said. We want to be the children you deserved. Then visit me because you miss me, Dorothy said. Call me because you're thinking about me. Care about my happiness, not my bank account. Ellen made a final announcement. Dorothy, the Ellen Show would like to help you find the perfect living situation that matches your actual means and preferences. Dorothy smiled for the first time since the revelation. I'd like that, but more than that, I'd like my children to help me choose it, because they want me to be happy. The episode aired 2 months later and became one of Ellen's most discussed shows. Viewers were divided. Some felt Dorothy's test was cruel, others felt it was necessary. The family worked with counselors to rebuild their relationships. Dorothy moved to an upscale assisted living community where her children visited frequently, not because they felt obligated, but because they genuinely enjoyed her company. 6 months later, Dorothy returned to Ellen's show with her children. The transformation was remarkable. They seemed like a different family. How are things now? Ellen asked. Honest, Dorothy said. They visit me twice a week. They call just to chat. They care about my daily life, not my financial life. Robert spoke for his siblings. We learned that Mom was right to test us. We failed the first time, but we're not failing now. Ellen kept a photo from that follow-up show. Dorothy surrounded by her children, all of them laughing genuinely together. It reminded her that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is reveal an uncomfortable truth. Because Dorothy learned that money really can't buy love, but it can certainly reveal who loves you and who loves what you have. Sometimes the most expensive gift you can give someone is the truth about their character. Her $12 million remained in trust for her children, but now she knew they loved her, whether they inherited it or not. And that knowledge, she told Ellen, was worth more than any amount of money. Dorothy Williams had spent 3 years living a lie to discover the truth. In the end, she found that the most valuable thing she owned wasn't in any bank account. It was the knowledge that her children's love was real, even if it had taken some uncomfortable revelations to prove it.